What do you do when the opposition doesn't attack you with swords, but with smiles? What do you do when the greatest threat to your calling doesn't look like an enemy, but sounds like a friend? In Ezra chapter 4, Israel begins rebuilding the temple of God. The foundation is laid, the vision is alive, hope is breathing again. And then resistance shows up. Not roaring, not threatening, but offering help. This chapter is not just history, it's a mirror, because sometimes the most dangerous enemy of your destiny is not obvious hostility, it's subtle compromise. Stay with me until the end, because the lesson hidden in Ezra 4 will shift how you see opposition forever. The offer that wasn't innocent. Ezra chapter 4, verses 1 through 3. The temple foundation had barely dried when adversaries approached. "Let us build with you, for we seek your God as you do." It sounds spiritual, cooperative, even humble. But these weren't worshipers of the living God. They were people who mixed Yahweh with idols, half devotion, split loyalty, faith diluted with compromise. And here's the moment that changes everything. Zerubbabel and the leaders say, "You have nothing to do with us in building a house to our God." That sounds harsh, exclusive, unfriendly, but it was discernment. Because not every partnership is purpose-aligned. Not every supporter is spiritually safe. Not every open door is from God. The first lesson of Ezra 4, clarity protects calling. If Israel had accepted their help, the temple would have been built faster, but it would not have been pure. Sometimes speed is the enemy of sanctity. When rejection turns into resistance, Ezra chapter 4, verses 4 through 5. When the offer is rejected, the tone changes. The same people who said, "Let us help you," now begin to discourage, intimidate, frustrate, and hire counselors to stop the work. The smile becomes sabotage. And here is the pattern. When compromise is refused, opposition often intensifies. That is not proof you were wrong, it is often proof you are aligned. They tried everything: psychological discouragement, political manipulation, strategic delay, and it worked for a while. The work slowed, the people became afraid. Have you ever started something God gave you and suddenly everything became harder? Ezra 4 says, expect resistance when rebuilding something sacred. The power of a letter. Ezra chapter 4, verses 16 through 16. Then comes something unexpected, a letter. The enemies write to King Artaxerxes accusing Jerusalem of rebellion, insurrection, and political danger. Notice the strategy. They didn't attack spiritually, they attacked legally. They reframed the rebuilding as a threat to government stability. This is sophisticated opposition. Sometimes your obedience will be misunderstood. Sometimes your faithfulness will be misrepresented. Sometimes your integrity will be twisted into accusation. The enemy doesn't just fight you emotionally, he tries to weaponize systems. The king reads the letter and orders the work to stop. And suddenly, the temple construction halts. The dream pauses. The progress freezes. The silence between verses. Ezra chapter 4, verse 24. Verse 24 says the work stopped until the second year of Darius. That pause lasted years, years of unfinished foundation, years of visible incompletion, years of wondering. Ezra 4 doesn't give us the emotional detail, but imagine it. Every time they walked past the temple site, they saw what could have been. Half-built obedience is painful to look at. Here's the deeper lesson. Opposition can delay God's work, but it cannot destroy God's promise. The pause was real, the discouragement was real, but the purpose was still alive. Because God's plans are not fragile, they are resilient. And what looked like defeat in chapter 4 becomes revival in chapter 5, when prophets rise and the work resumes. The pause was not the end, it was preparation. Here it is. The greatest threat to God's work was not external force, it was internal compromise. The chapter begins with a test of identity. Who are we building for? When that answer was clear, the foundation remained pure. Yes, opposition delayed them, but compromise would have corrupted them. Delay is temporary, corruption is permanent. Let that sink in. Sometimes God allows delay to protect purity. Sometimes the no is guarding something sacred. Sometimes what looks like loss is actually preservation. You may be rebuilding your faith, your marriage, your discipline, your purpose, your calling, and someone offers help that feels slightly off. Discern. You may face pushback after you set boundaries. Stand firm. You may experience a long pause where nothing seems to move. Trust the promise, because if God initiated the rebuilding, God will complete it. Ezra 4 is not about defeat, it's about discernment. It's about resilience. It's about understanding that the enemy's strategy evolves, but God's purpose remains steady. If Israel had compromised, the temple might have been finished earlier, but it would not have been holy. If they had surrendered under pressure, the story would have ended in chapter 4. But it didn't, because the God who stirred their hearts in chapter 1 was still sovereign in chapter 4. And if you are in a chapter 4 season right now, where the work has slowed, where the resistance feels organized, where the accusations sting, where the foundation looks exposed, remember this: the pause is not proof of abandonment. It may be protection. The story continues, and so does yours. If this message spoke to you, stay for the next video. Subscribe.